guys. Happy Tuesday. Let me get rid of that. Okay. Hope everybody's had a good week last week and good weekend. Been working on 4200, and I did go out of town last week. Went up to Jacksonville Beach and saw the Blue Angels. That was pretty cool. First time I've seen them up close. That was pretty cool. I put a little piece together, so not sure how that's gonna go, but we'll try it out. Let me put some on the chat here. All right, so anyway, been since I got back in town, been working on the Smurf, getting the motor ready for that. Had to rebuild the torque converter, reseal it, and get that back together. And got the short block on the 4200 back together, and that's about all we got done this week so far. Of course, it's only Tuesday night, so. Yeah, so that was what we had done so far. And see, Ryan, happy Tuesday, Ryan. Hopefully I get the volume on this time. Nobody's saying anything, so I'm assuming I got it going this time. Hopefully the volume is right. We're still on the OBS software. Being out of town, I wasn't able to get the StreamYard done yet, so still working on that. That maybe I can get that done this week. I did send my wife off to Ohio for the week. She goes up every year and does does a pumpkin carving with everybody, and they have a big contest and all that. And my mother-in-law's birthday is tomorrow, and so she likes to go up and spend her mom's birthday with her. So she's up for the week, so that does free up a little bit of evening time if I'm not wore out from in the shop, but maybe I can get something going on there. Ryan says everything's good. That's good. Thank you for the heads up on that. So I guess we'll give this Blue Angels thing a shot. I don't know if anybody's seen the Blue Angels, but it's pretty cool. So some of these are pictures. Some are have volume speakers on them. But we're in condo on the beach, about a mile from the supposed to loop. Let me put it back on again. So, but it was a lot of good time. Very impressive. Their flying formations and stuff like that. So it's really not car related stuff, but I figured I'd put it up there anyway. Something we did this weekend and it was pretty cool. We were able to watch the air show Tuesday, watch the air show on Saturday, and again on Sunday. So have been playing that on the TV and listening to that. Currently at 6:52, they're still doing public comments. I've got it playing above me above my head. So very interesting. A lot of moving parts to that land swap, and originally I thought, they're just going to get this land swap done and they'll get an ATV track and then we'll get the property for the drag strip. There's a lot of other working components, stuff for the water district and land swaps and affordable housing and a bunch of other stuff. So I don't know how it's going. It seems to me they're probably going to not make a vote tonight because there's normally commission meetings are done by 2-3 o'clock, and as I said, it's still going on right now. They had people in 7 different locations in the building because they ran out of room in the main meeting hall. So from what I've listened to, I think it's about a 60-40 for approval, but who knows? Commissioners can do whatever they see fit. I entrust that they are looking out for the county as a whole, and a lot of people that are against it are either against losing farmland, which most of the farmers have moved away because it's just not convenient anymore with the traffic and the population density here. It's just not profitable for them to farm anymore, so I don't see that being a big issue anymore. And the rest of them are just to me, they're a bunch of Karens. They just don't, you can do it anywhere, but don't do it next to me. Well, that's not a good answer, because now the people that, it's going to go next to, they're going to say the same thing. So that's not a good answer. And it's not a real good reason for stopping a project to go forward. So we'll see what happens with that. But hopefully we'll get the 128 acres at the 20 Mile Bend freed up so we can get a motorsports park in there. And in the meantime, the commissioners are working on getting the Pahokee Airport to open up a couple days a week a couple days a month, that we could use it for drag strip and maybe autocross track and stuff for in the meantime. So we will see. The saga continues. So on my way back and forth from Boynton Beach to Jacksonville Beach, we saw tons of bikes out for Biketoberfest in Daytona. Hopefully they had a lot of good times. I don't know if Mike's on yet, but I know he showed pictures on Facebook. He was there. Looked like he had a good time. Hopefully it was a good event, and you know, nobody got hurt. Always concerned with the volume of motorcycles on the highways. Here in Florida, we have tons of people on the road, and you know, with cell phones and all the other stuff, not everybody pays attention to what they're doing anymore. You can see it daily on the highway. You're following a car and you're like, what the heck is this person doing in front of me? And then you pass them and they're on their phone instead of driving their car. So that's a deadly combination. Hopefully at some point we become a hands-free thing. Stephen Murphy's on. Hey George. Hey man. Hey Stephen, how you doing? So yeah, so that was good. We saw a lot of stuff on the highway and stuff. Since I got involved with the number 7 Phillips Lighting Ford Taurus stock car, I haven't gone and got it yet because the holdup with Leo's Studebakers left me without a spot. But I saw on Facebook that the Stock Car Classics Club were at Rockingham over the weekend, and they had, I think, 14 cars there, and they were out hot lapping, so it looked like a lot of fun. Something besides doing burnouts I think I might look forward to in the future with that car. So that was pretty cool. I think I mentioned last week that since I started doing some internet research on stock car parts and stuff like that, I kind of opened Pandora's box with all these stock car groups, and you know, they're all trying to preserve history with the stock cars of yesteryear. So it was pretty cool to see them on track. There was a bunch of different eras represented and other classes, so that's always good. So that looked like a lot of fun, and you know, hopefully one day we'll be showing some stuff on the channel with that. I did get the 4200. I got the short block together on that, so I got a little video on that. So there's a spot on here that I'm talking because those are some clips that I'm taping for the future thing. There's the dry sump pump when I was disassembling it, which I believe that is where our issue was with the oiling. The pressure regulator in the back of the pump, back of the pump, did have some binding on it. Didn't get as much pictures as I would have liked when it was apart, but that was because my hands were covered in oil and I didn't want to grab the phone. So there's the pictures of the rod bearings, which you can see that they look perfect, and there's all the main bearings from the block and the main caps, and you see again they, you know, don't show any signs of any kind of wear or anything like that. Okay, so after the fiasco with losing oil pressure, we have the block all cleaned up, put all the galley plugs out, bristle brushed the entire engine, got rid of all the silicone, and as you can see, these are the bearings that were in it before, and they're perfect. It was not an oiling issue at all, but I believe it was a dry sump pump issue. There's the main cap. So we're going to put her back together and get it running again. So here we go. Okay, so the short block is assembled now, and you notice there's red paint on the bolts to identify being torqued instead of white, because white was the last time. So we want to definitely differentiate between the assemblies. You can see it turns over. That's with just a couple fingers on the wrench. Everything's turning over nice and sweet now. So next we'll put the head on and finish the assembly. Yeah, so as you can see, the short block was assembled, and all the galley plugs were all back in and everything all solid up, and everything's going together good on that. I had the main girdle glued down. That's why all the bolts are in where the pan bolts would normally go. So that would all seat and be sealed, and so that's going together good. Got to put the head on next. That's the next procedure for that, and we'll get that thing together. Again, the only thing I could find so far was the possibility of the stuck pressure regulator, so I don't see any issues with anything else we've put together. I did find that a lot of the block plugs were installed with silicone, which I wasn't too crazy about, because when I pulled everything apart, there was little pieces of silicone left inside the block. So after bristle brushing everything out, that's all gone, and I used aviation Permatex for this to seal all that up. I think that's going to work a lot better. I'm not a big fan of silicone in threaded areas and stuff like that, or anything that's going to be in pressurized oil jackets or anything like that. That stuff can break loose, and I didn't show in the video, but even where the block girdle connected to the engine block, of course, silicone would squeeze in. Well, I took a knife and cut all that silicone out while it was still wet, so that stuff can't get loose and get into the screens and stuff like that. So I always like to try to keep that stuff as clean as possible. So hopefully that thing's going to be, we'll get that thing back together ASAP. I did send the head back to my buddy Mike to have him go through it just one more time, just to make sure everything was good. The tops of the sleeves, where they were rusted before, the rust is trying to come back through on the sleeve. So I just want to make sure that we didn't have any rust issues on the valve seats or anything like that, since it had run. I just kind of want them to go over everything, just make sure everything looked good. So I should be getting that back shortly, and then I can get the motor back in the car hopefully by the weekend and get that thing running again, and then we'll get to the dyno. As I mentioned earlier, working on getting the motor back in the Smurf. I had to pull it out to fix a torque converter leak. It's got a Neil Chance bolt together torque converter, and I believe we were getting oil coming out of the output tube that connects to that drives the oil pump out of the back of the converter. Normally in a steel converter, that stuff is all welded together. It's all one continuous piece, but being a bolt together, that's steel, and it's bolted to an aluminum converter body. And we've resealed the pump, we've resealed the front seal, we've resealed everything else, and we're still getting traces of trans fluid in the bell housing, and that's pretty much the only place it can come from. So we went ahead and took it apart, resealed it, and I gotta do a couple little wiring things in that car. Probably I'm gonna try to get some video. Of course, being a grudge car, I have to be careful with what we show, but try to get you some pictures of some of the stuff that we got going on in that car that I can show. So look for that for next Tuesday, and hopefully next Tuesday we'll have this thing, the 4200 running. So we'll see what happens with that. That's my goals. Get those two things back together and running before next Tuesday. The Next race is going to be November 2nd through 4th on the Smurf up at South Georgia Motorsports Park. So get that thing together this week and get it loaded up in the trailer, and that way we're ready to go. And we're a week ahead of time. So see, Chris made it on. Hey, Chris, what's going on? Got that piece sent out to the dry shaft guys, but I haven't. I doubt they've got it yet. So they'll probably get it tomorrow or the next day. Because I didn't get it out till last night, and I'm not sure if UPS was able to pick that up last night or today. If they picked it up today, they'll have it tomorrow. But get your dry shaft going. And what else do we had going on? Been searching for some parts for the NASCAR. I found a fuel cell, so I'm working on getting that thing down from Lakeland. Did find a 4200 motor in a crate, brand new GM long block that is in Ryan's neck of the woods. And so I've been working on trying to see how we can get that shipped in. Still working on getting some pricing. Unfortunately, Fastenal, who if anybody needs to ship big parts, Fastenal is, check them out. That's a hardware company that's does a lot of construction type hardware, and they're in a lot of everybody's neighborhoods. Well, I didn't realize they have a west zone and an east zone, and unfortunately, Utah is in the west zone, and they will not cross zones with shipping. But typically, like fiberglass parts and stuff like that, you want to get a front cap for a car. That comes in a huge, huge box. Usually you get a 5 foot by 8 foot by 3 feet thick box. May not weigh a lot, but nevertheless, it's a big, huge box, and shipping is very expensive. But I've found in the past that Fastenal is a very good source for shipping. They ship store to store, so it has to be dropped off at one of their stores, and then they put it in they have their own trucking system, so they'll put it in their truck, and then it'll go through their system, and then end up at a store local to you, and you can go pick it up from there. It's not the quickest system. It may have to go to 2 or 3 transfer spots, so where it might get more expensive shipping in 3 days, it may take 5 days with them, but usually the pricing is about half. I've just point of reference, I've had some T56 6-speed transmissions shipped. Guy straps it on a pallet and ships it from, like, I had one shipped from Indiana, and I think it was $175 delivered to my local Fastenal store. So I mean, you can't beat that. Normal LFT, less than full load, that would be $400 or $500. As far as like this 4200 engine from Utah, the best price I've gotten so far is $600 for shipping. As I said, Fastenal can't do it. So Chris is asking, who is the Smurf? The Smurf, if you look on the channel, the Smurf is a blue 84 Monte Carlo SS grudge drag car that I'm the car chief on. I do all the maintenance and mechanical work on the car, and we're getting ready to go to Mike Hill's race in South Georgia Motorsports Park, year-end big grudge blowout, and we are in a 4-car small block shootout. So basically, for people that aren't up on the grudge scene, a small block shootout, or any kind of shootout, is a number of cars with a rule package that usually somebody will come up with. There's no nationwide rule package. It's just whoever's promoting the race or whoever's promoting the shootout will make up rules. So in our rules for this race, it's going to be heads up, stock body car with a small block engine on nitrous. So those are the stipulations for that race. Each car will put X amount of money in. I think this one is $2,500, and then typically a sponsor will throw in some money on top of it, and it's winner takes all. So there's no second or third place. It's out of the 4 cars we're going, somebody's taking all the money. So it's a lot of fun. It's drag racing at its best. Heads up, whoever crosses the stripe first, no breakouts, no dial-ins and all that stuff. The bracket racing stuff is fun, but it's really not fun to watch it like the heads up stuff is. Of course, the grudge racing, there's a whole nother entity of the crowds and all that stuff, but it's a lot of fun. And luckily, we have a really fast car, so I would say we definitely have a 1 in 4 odds of taking the money home, but I think we're a little better than that. So the car is called Papa Smurf Jr. because the car owner has 2 Monte Carlos. So he has a big block Monte Carlo that's Papa Smurf, and then the small block car is Papa Smurf Jr. So that's where that comes in. And of course, for ease of talking about the car, we just call it the Smurf. So that's what's going on with that. Of course, because it's grudge racing and betting and all that stuff, there's a lot of secretive stuff going on. So that's why I don't have a lot of footage on the car. I mean, I have good amounts of footage of the car going down the track, but not of the inner workings of the car. That's stuff we try to keep under wrap. Mike says, is there a cubic inch limit on small block, or is it just small block by manufacturer description? So there's two different small block rules nowadays. It used to be small block under the definition of as a Chevy or Ford or Chrysler, but of course, because of race engine manufacturing, I mean, these cars, there's nothing stock about the engine at all except for the original design. But so to answer your question, there are stock bore center small block shootouts where everybody has to be the same spacing between cylinders, which at that point there is a cubic inch limit because you can only make the engine so big. However, since the advent of everybody running CNC machines and making billet engine blocks and stuff like that, now they have pushed the bore center out beyond the factory spec. So I kind of can see where it's very gray area of what a real small block is. Our car is a stock bore center engine. We still, as far as I know, we have the fastest stock bore center engine in the Southeast. A lot of the cars we race are not stock bore center, so they can be, I've heard engines as large as 570 cubic inch, which, you got to laugh that that's a small block, but under whatever kind of terms they consider it, they still call them small blocks. So, but most of them are, aftermarket cast blocks, aftermarket cast heads, CNC porting and all that kind of stuff. It's not a poor man's sport. It's not something I would be doing on my own dime. That's for darn sure. Our car runs in the A League, which obviously denotes the top tier. There's B leagues and C leagues. I wouldn't even want to try to put a car in one of those classes because it's forget the cubic inches of the engine. It's the cubic dollars it costs to run these cars. So that's the termination there. As I said, our car is a stock bore center motor, so we do have a lot of limitations on how big our engine can be. But we can run with those guys. We have a good engine program, and the motor makes good power. And as you could see, I forget what episode of the live show was, but I showed the footage from Darlington, which was I believe it was in August, where we took out 2 cars. Again, we don't know for sure what they were in, but the disrespectful Corvette, it was orange and kind of half primer. I believe that motor was rumored, it was going around the track, rumored that motor was in the 550 cubic inch range. We did beat him. We didn't gap him, but we did beat him. Then we raced a Mustang I don't know what motor was in that one, but we were able to put a gap on that. So, see, John Roberts is here also. Hey man, how you doing? And Mike, you probably came in a little late. I was discussing. I went to Jacksonville and saw a bunch of bikes going to Oktoberfest, and I saw you and your missus that were there enjoying festivities. I hope everything went nice, was good, and hope nobody in the bike families were hurt from cars. There was a bunch of wrecks on 95 going up to Jacksonville, so it was pretty crazy. But so that was pretty much it. Like I said, I showed earlier, got the 4200 together and a short block together anyway, and I did get the torque converter repaired for the Smurf, so that's all good. So we're making progress, getting these things good to go. And of course, when we get the 4200 back in the Studebaker, I'll get that back to Leo. Then we can get the NASCAR in, and we can get some footage on that, and hopefully I'll do. And Mike says you had a good weekend. Great. Yeah, your pictures looked like you were having fun. So, guess that it was a pretty big weekend. I know coming back on Monday, it was just lines of motorhomes with big trailers on the back, and pickup trucks with trailers, and bikes in the back of trucks, and big line of guys riding bikes heading north on 95. So I'm sure, as usual, it was probably a big, huge crowd. Daytona always draws a big crowd. And really was hard to see in the videos from the Blue Angels, but that place was packed. It was pretty incredible to see how many people were at the beach to watch the Blue Angels. Buck Does It is in the house. Thanks for stopping by, man. I haven't listened to you yet on the StreamYard. I'm trying to get that going. I'm still messing around with this OBS, and it's pulling my hair out. Chris says, can the Smurf does it do street racing, big money sort of races? The Smurf is a radial tire car, and anybody that watches Street Outlaws and they talk about, that car is a radial prep car, and it's they talk about how they can't run on the street. The reason being is radials rely on traction. So if you go to a drag strip, or if you're watching a drag show, or like Flow Racing or anything, or No Prep Kings or any of that stuff, you may hear somebody refer to track as being radial prepped. So on a radial tire, you cannot break traction. Once you break traction, there's no making up. On a slick car, especially the big tire cars, they can actually spin the tire all the way down the track and still accelerate, and still not go as fast as if they had better traction, but they can still race and still compete. Small tire slicks, they're a little bit trickier. You definitely want to keep traction as much as you can. But one thing about all slick tires is they want free rotation. So, and what I mean by that is, they don't want you, and you'll hear people mention, I stuck the tire. On a drag car with a bias ply slick, if you stick the tire, as they say, what will happen is it'll go into tire shake, because the tire is, you can see the wrinkle walls and how they knot up as they accelerate. So what will happen is, if you stick the tire, is that wrinkle comes out of the tire, and it makes the car come off the ground, and then the car goes into tire shake because you've lost contact to the track. On a radial tire, first of all, it twists, but it doesn't necessarily wrinkle like a wrinkle wall slick. And once it loses traction, there is no more traction. So a bias ply slick can run on multiple different surfaces, and it's a tuner's game. For radials to work, it has to be radial prepped. And what radial prepped is, they spray an enormous amount of glue on the track, and then they drag it to rub it into the track, and you can't even walk across the lanes. I mean, we'll hold on to the wing to keep the car straight to do a burnout, and as we get closer to the starting line, if you don't get off of the racing surface, it'll take your shoes right off your feet. If you watch grudge racing, you'll see multiple times they'll have snippets of people falling over, stuck to the ground, socks coming off their feet, shoes coming off their feet. The track is super sticky. So that's why a radial car really isn't a street race car, because there's not enough stick on the ground, and once it spins the tires, the race is over. You just have to lift. It'll never reconnect. Where a bias ply tire, a wrinkle wall slick, it can catch up and reconnect with the surface and accelerate the car, or it can just spin all the way down the track. It doesn't care. As long as you can keep control of the car, it'll keep moving forward. So that's the biggest thing. So yeah, the Smurf is a radial car for racetracks only, and for radial prepped tracks only. And then our tuning game is obviously the tracks, from so many people on the starting line, and cars, dropping liquids, and how thick the rubber is on the track. There's still a tuning portion to our racing, because if you don't line the car up right, it'll knock the tires right off. And of course, we're applying a lot of power to the tires immediately. Another big thing you'll notice watching grudge cars opposed to no prep or street race cars or even bracket cars is typically a bias ply tire car with a slick, wrinkle wall slick. The car will squat over top of the tire. The car is getting weight transfer on top of the tire by the car squatting and the weight moving from the front to the back. Whereas on a radial car, we actually get separation. We actually are we're using the torque of the engine to push the rear end down, which that entailed picking the body up off the car. So when you see a picture of a car with big gaps above the rear tire in the wheel well, that's because it's separating, and that's because it's running radial tires. So if you watch any of your Ducks races out of South Georgia Motorsports Park, his No Mercy and Lights Out and stuff like that, and if you watch any of those races, you'll see those cars getting the rear end will go up considerably, like radial versus world cars that are going 380s, 390s in the 8th mile. I mean, you can actually see light above the tires, between the tire and the fender, right through the car. See light right through the whole center of the car. That's how much separation the car is getting. So completely different setup, completely different shock setup. But of course, that's how these cars can accelerate without wheelie bars, because we're pushing the rear end down into the track and picking the car up. So it kind of pushes the weight back to the front of the car, because we're not using weight to push the rear end down. We're using the torque of the engine to push the rear end down. So the front of the car is a lot heavier. Whereas a regular drag car, you're more 50-50, and you're pushing all the weight to the back of the car. So that makes the front end light. So that's why a drag car will typically, a bias ply wrinkle wall slick car will use wheelie bars. So that's the thing. But so our cars look, when they're sitting in the parking lot, they look more like a street car because it's got a radial tire on the back, no wheelie bar. We got lights and all that kind of stuff on the car, but the racing surface would never be good enough on the street to actually race on the street. And we don't want to break the law. We're not racing in Mexico, as they say. So, but that's what we're doing there. So Mike says Turkey's nice. Going to try and make it. Yes, and I'm hoping to be there on Saturday. So if anybody is at Daytona Turkey Rod Run on Saturday, let's email me or hit me on Facebook or something, and we can hook up at the meet. I myself usually spend the first half of the day walking the flea market, and then I'll grab lunch, because the way the track is set up, the spectators come in turn one on the front stretch, and so that's where the flea market is in that fielded area. And as you walk down towards the garage areas, that's where they have all the food vendors and stuff. So that's what I do. I come in that area, I walk the flea market, see if there's any deals, if there's anything I need, droll over somebody's project that's for sale that would be cool to fix or finish, what have you. And then I end up in the center, grab some lunch, and then I'll cruise the show car area. So that's kind of how I do it. And of course, in the middle of that whole infield, they have the for sale stuff. I just totally lost the name of it. Car corral, and so that's always fun to walk down and see what people are selling, kind of get an idea what prices are going for. And of course, anytime you're looking at finished cars or cars semi-finished, you can always maybe pick up a build trick or see how people are attempting to do different things. So it's always cool to take a look at those things. And I do want to try to catch up with the guys. Hopefully they'll be there this year. They're every year in the past. They do the car dips. They actually dip the body or the frame or whatever into I don't think it's an acid solution. I'm not sure exactly what it is, because I'm sure EPA would be all over them if it was some kind of toxic acid. But they actually strip everything off the car, leaving bare metal, and then they put it in, I think, a phosphate wash after that, which then puts a coating on the steel. So it actually would take quite a bit to make rust. So I want to get some information from them, because I'm thinking, since the Vet Hawk is going to be not backburnered by any means, but it's going to, I've just made my mind that I want to do that car 100% right, and not say no expenses spared, but I just want the car to be 100%. If there's something that is better than what I'm doing, I want to do it to that car. So, as far as, I've got a killer engine for it. I got a great transmission that we're going to build for it. We're putting parts together for that. I've got the Holly Dominator and the 12-inch dash for that thing. I've got vintage air for it. So, I'm getting all these top-notch products together for it. So I want to do the entire car that way. So, since I'm going that route, I'm thinking I'd like to get that body stripped like that, because there was some surface rust in some areas, and I don't know how much Bondo is in certain areas, and I just figured it'd be a whole lot easier to put the car back together and get the all the fiberglass body panels epoxied onto the car if the car was stripped and just we started with bare metal. So I think that's something I definitely want to do. I'm look into it anyway. I'm hoping it's something affordable and something they can do a quick turnaround. I think they're up in the Tampa area, so it'd have to be something that hopefully they could do in a day or two. So that way, maybe the wife and I make a trip over to a campground or something over there, stay for a couple of days, and get the car done. That way I can go and come back with the car round trip rather than making two trips. So we'll see what happens. But yes, so I'm definitely trying to go to the rod run. Unfortunately, we've been spending Thanksgiving up in Rockport, Massachusetts for the last couple of years, so I haven't been able to do my normal deal. And wink, wink, my normal deal is we go and have Thanksgiving with the family, and then Saturday morning I disappear for the day, and everybody is understanding and they're cool with it, and so it works out real well. And that way I get to do the rod run, and being we usually do it in the Jacksonville area, I'm only an hour away rather than being 3.5 hours away like I am from home. So it works out real good. So that's the plan. So media blasts can warp the panels. Yes, I'm not a huge fan of media blasting. It works great. as long as the operator knows what he's doing. All you have to do is get somebody that's training or whatever, and man, they can make a mess out of a roof or a hood in a heartbeat. Quarter panels, I think, are usually a little bit more durable, but that roof panel and the hood panel with minimal amount of support, they can make a mess out of it where you can't even use it anymore. Yeah, Chris says he looks forward to meeting at the track. Yes, hopefully we'll get the burnout car done, which now looks like it's also going to turn into an autocross and track day car. Definitely going to try to make some events with that, and get a couple of the local autocrosses in. I don't know if this works everywhere in the country, but so the stock car classics group that do on track days on with the stock cars for history's sake, to be a member, I saw that you had to go to motorsportreg.com, and I hadn't heard of that website, and it ends up being affiliated with Haggerty's car insurance, classic car insurance. And it actually is a place where all these car events list their events, and you can register and sign up. So like us here in Florida, they have a bunch of the firm events, Central Florida SCCA. I saw the guys in Port St. Lucie, Equipe, whatever their name is. I never have figured out how to pronounce their name, but the guys that do the autocross in Fort Pierce Fairgrounds, and they also do occasionally one at the South Florida Fairgrounds here in Palm Beach County. I've ran with them in the past. I don't know how to pronounce their name. And I don't know if I think Gold Coast Autocrossers also uses that for their online registration. So I think I'll put that in the comments. People should check that out, because I definitely saw countrywide advertising of different venues to do. There was car shows, Amelia Island in Jacksonville. Well, actually in Amelia Island, but it's outside Jacksonville. They do a huge classic car show, kind of like Pebble Beach. I saw that they had their registrations on there. So, and you can put in a city or a state and how many miles radius you want to search, and you can find out all that, and they have all the calendars on there. So that was a good find. So definitely, if anybody's looking for car events where they can run their cars or shows or whatever, that's maybe a good outlet. And of course, the Stock Car Classic guys, they do their membership on there, and they also do all their events on there. Hopefully, they can. Most of their events are in North Carolina. Hopefully, they can get a couple more down this way. My mindset would be like Atlanta road course would be cool. Of course, Atlanta Speedway would be cool. Daytona would be super cool. I don't know if they could make that happen. And that's a big track to allow, guys that are running historic cars and not really, maybe not so much licensed racers. So I don't know if that's something they could get into. But Mike says the firm is just up the road for me in Stark. Yes, I've been seeing the firm on Facebook, but of course nobody says where it's at. They just keep saying, "Oh, here's some footage from the firm" and stuff like that. So now I saw it was in Stark, and of course that Stark's right out. Right, I guess it's northeast of Gainesville, I think, because I remember I've been to the Gators and seen the signs for Stark, and of course I've been to Stark, Florida. U.S. Body Source, a fiberglass body company, is in there, and back in the day they built a bunch of Malibu G-body parts for me before anybody was really making that stuff. So I've actually been to Stark, but from my 75, not from my 95. So it was very cool to see that that's up in that area. And Might have to get up that way. Once we get something to run on the racetrack again, I definitely want to try to hit some events and get it going. A couple of the guys in the stock car classics, I mentioned to them about autocross, and a couple of guys mentioned that they had done it in the past and said those cars work a lot better than you would even think they would. Of course, they probably ran them on the slicks, and that's not going to be probably legal for any of the area guys around here, but we'll I'll probably get extra wheels and put some proper 200 treadwear tires on it if we get to that point. So Mike says it's about halfway between Jacksonville and Gainesville. Cool. So yeah, so I guess in Middleburg is kind of in that area. You said it's about a half hour from you. So Gainesville is actually fairly close to, although I don't think they use that track very often, but very crazy. So I'm looking up and seeing that they're still have general public giving comments on that land swap proposal deal that has got something to do with our drag strip. So very interesting to see how that all comes out. But I don't know what else we got. A bunch of things. I got a bunch of irons in the fire, but I really haven't gotten much in way of getting along much. So I want to get this Camaro back going, but I got these two race cars that are now blocking the shop. I can't even put the lifts down. So see what we can get through this week. As I said, my wife is out of town, so if I have enough steam to put in some late hours, which I'm hoping to, try to get some forward progress on these projects. I'd love to do a good walk around in the shop, but the last 3-4 weeks it's just been such a mess in here. I mean, you can't even walk around without tripping over something. It's the pitfalls of a small shop. The good thing is you can't get too much stuff. Can't get into trouble with too many cars at one time, but it is what it is. We'll get through it. I think Leo said that their next chance to run his car is going to be November. It's the Sunday before Thanksgiving. I don't remember what the date is off the top of my head. I'm thinking 19th. So that'll be the next time that car will hit the track. So hopefully my plan is, here's my plan. I'm hoping to get the head on the motor this week, get the motor in the car, and get the car on the dyno someday next week. That way it can go in the trailer and it's ready to roll. And then my other plan is to get the motor in the Smurf tomorrow. I've got a couple things to wire up in it tomorrow or on Thursday. Fill a bunch of nitrous bottles, and then I can clean and pack that trailer, and that trailer's ready to go. So if I can get that done, say by Tuesday, and I get the Studebaker done by Tuesday, then maybe we can get on a dyno with the Studebaker. If I can get the Studebaker done before then, possibly I could get it on the dyno Saturday or Monday, which that would be cool because then I could get a little footage for you guys to see. But nevertheless, so I definitely have footage of it running, and I'll get some footage of the Smurf running. So we'll have some hot rods to show on the channel next week. Hopefully, I'm going to try my darnest to get this StreamYard on because I think it's going to be a better platform than what I'm currently using for the live show. So that's on the plan too. So I don't want to make the list too big, but I definitely want to get these things moving along. So we'll see what happens with that. And go from there. I didn't prepare, being I was out of town for a long weekend. I didn't get any tech stuff prepared. Although I guess you could count the little conversation about the slicks as a technical segment, but those are all the things that I like to try to get some tech stuff in every week, and didn't do a good job this week. So I apologize, everybody. Hopefully, that doesn't deter anybody. I did get some T-shirt designs done over the weekend, and I am currently trying to figure out how to place them in a store. I think I'm gonna start out with a company that does they print on demand, so there's no large quantities to order. I can just put them on there, keep the prices at a moderate price, and you just go on the store, which will be linked to my channel. You won't have to go to any stores or any addresses that are odd. It'll be Landis Performance, and then you can just pick your colors and pick the designs you like and get them, and then hopefully that'll be something people will like, and it'll also be a good thing as people venture into the channel joining or channel membership, because there'll be discounts on that. So probably a pretty hefty discount. It'll probably move the shirt price down to at cost, because your membership, there's no reason to make any kind of profits. So Mike says, I see a lot of content providers using StreamYard, and I have it loaded but haven't messed with it yet. Yes, actually, Buck Does It was on the show earlier tonight, and he uses StreamYard, and that's where my first time seeing it. Cool thing is, a lot of the as we move forward, people that use the chat features, the super chats and stuff like that, or memberships, their chats would actually pop up on screen in a bubble. That was pretty cool, and it just seems like a lot easier software to use. Of course, their software is a monthly fee. They do have a basic free service, but it's very basic. That's why I went to the OBS, because it allowed you to do a lot of things that pay services would normally give you, and it's free. But being open, what do they call that? Open source program. It leaves, it's not highly buffed because it's free, so they expect programming people to get involved in it and stuff and know their ways around it. I am not one of them. My programming skills ends at Holly and Excel DFI tuning. That's about the extent of my computer knowledge. Chris says, will a 102 throttle body make gains over my 90 with 14 pounds of boost? So, good question, Chris. On a naturally aspirated engine, the throttle body is not typically the source of restriction. So a 90 throttle body on a 500 horsepower motor is usually adequate. You can go to 102, no problem at all, but there's usually no gain unless your engine is requiring more air. But that being said, your intake and heads have to flow more air. Now, in your situation with a supercharger, the bigger throttle body you can put on it, the less heat it's going to make and the more boost it's going to make, because you want the restriction between the blower rotors and your intake valve. You don't want a restriction of the air entering the supercharger. So anytime you can make that larger, it's going to make cooler air and it's going to make more boost. Actually, the guys I had talked to you about, Pros Tuning in Riviera Beach, they actually use on the Whipple and Magnuson, they actually make a billet adapter, and they run the Pro Stock oval plate throttle body on those, because when you're getting up into the higher boost levels or the bigger blowers, even the 102 throttle body does not move enough air to give the supercharger an unrestricted inlet. So they've found that they are making big, huge gains using the oval Pro Stock throttle body, which I think that throttle body is in the 130 millimeter range. I mean, it's oval, so it's not the same concept, so they don't really even list it as that. But from what I've heard, the airflow is in the same realm as like if it was a large 120 130 millimeter throttle body. So yes, 102 would be a big gain. If you are buying a throttle body, it may even be worthwhile looking at even the larger Pro Stock throttle body. Anytime you have a restriction on the inlet side of the supercharger, it's going to create additional heat because the supercharger is straining to get the air in. It can actually even cause the supercharger to cavitate, where it's actually starts not even producing airflow because it can't get anything in, and it starts cavitating, kind of like a boat propeller would when it's got the wrong angle on it. It just spins and doesn't do anything. We first ran into this with a 871 supercharger on a big block Chevy, but it was a non-stripped style rotor, so it wasn't very efficient, and we could actually see the air temp above the throttle body where we had the IAT sensor actually go from like 120 up into the 200 area because the blower couldn't pump enough air to feed the engine. A little bit different scenario, but same concept. So yeah, if you need to buy one, you should get a hold of Justin up there and talk to him about that before you buy anything, because it may not, I mean, it's probably going to be a couple bucks more to step up to the bigger deal, but I mean, if it's a gain and you're going to have to do it anyway, you might as well, get what is needed rather than just getting, what you can. But that would be my next move on that subject. Big as you can get. I mean, that's why you see everybody doing the inlet porting on those superchargers to get more air volume into the rotor, so the rotor can use all of its surface area to create boost instead of being limited on the inlet side. Which also, I mean, I've never seen any data to back it up, but I would think if the rotors are being restricted, that it's going to put a higher load on the drive assembly to spin the blower. So that may be something that could be another issue with a small throttle body, is it could create when it's trying to create cavitation, it would also create belt slip. And I believe on your car you're running a 8-rib serpentine, not a cog belt. So belt slip is always an issue on those serpentine belt setups. I mean, we try to run as many idlers to get as much wrap around the blower pulley as possible, but almost every one of those setups that we've done in the past, you always see an abundance of belt dust on the engine. And that's just, even though it may not be dampening the boost levels, but if you're seeing belt dust, there's belt slip, which means inefficiency. You're not getting everything out of what you're trying to do. So that'd be something you'd want to try to work on. Anytime you can free up restrictive power or friction, you're going to free up, that's free horsepower to the rear wheels. I mean, same reason back in the day we used to take the rigid blade fan blades off the engine and put a flex fan, and then later on from the flex fan to an electric fan to eliminate the fan on the engine altogether. I mean, you can produce 30-40 horsepower, and that's free, just removing a fan blade. And that's why the underdrive pulleys are always a big hit, because that slows all the accessories down to put more power to the crankshaft rather than power to running the accessories. The downside of that is when you slow the water pump down, you usually make more heat. So that's not always a good thing, but it's just things that we used to do back in the day. I mean, you want to make big power on an NA motor, just take the belt completely off and run an electric water pump, and I mean, you'll see huge gains in power. So that just kind of shows you. I mean, all those accessories, alternators, water pumps, those all pull power away from everything. So, sorry, I just heard somebody laughing on the county commissioner thing. It was kind of weird. So anyway, I'll try to find some information out. I know a lot of you guys aren't in this area. I know Chris is. So, and John Roberts both live in this area. So that's something the county commissioner meeting tonight is kind of important for us. Of course, it's going to be a bit of time before we actually have a facility to run at, but at least if we have the opportunity, that would be fantastic. In the meantime, we'll see what they say about the airport. The town hall meeting last week, they were saying that they're working on the airport. They think it's going to go through. They just have to get FAA approval. But we don't know what that's going to look like as far as what kind of events they're going to put on and what kind of timing and stuff like that we're going to have, and when it's going to be, and how many times a month and stuff like that. So there's still a lot of questions on that. But progress. I mean, there's not many counties in the United States that are trying to get motorsports into their county. Most of them are. That's black eye, so to speak. So I applaud Palm Beach County commissioners for listening to the needs of Palm Beach County residents, and we've definitely let them know that we want motorsports in the area, and they're listening and they're trying to make it happen one way or another. So we'll see what happens with that. I'll keep everybody on it when I find out more information about it. So we pretty much went over everything. I don't know if anybody had any further questions. Hope everybody's having a good week and getting projects done, and hopefully Chris is getting, him and his buddy are getting his car done. We'll get that dry shaft to him so they can get that all working, get rid of that vibration he's been chasing, and once they get all his new injectors and stuff in there, they can get it up and get it tuned. It'll be an E85 car. I think that's a big thumbs up, especially for a track car. You'll be surprised how much the ethanol helps water temperatures. I believe wholeheartedly that most cars all the cars that I've kept records on, it was a good 10 degrees swing in temperature on NAs, and supercharger is going to be all that much better. So that'll be good. Get that car so we can get on track and you can have a blast with it. And we get the 2 drag cars done. Trying to think if there's anything else that I have forgotten. That happens a lot. But I think that's about it. We'll keep apprised of the Daytona Rod Run for next month. So keep everybody up on that. So if anybody is making plans on going, we'll try to make a meetup or something there. I think that'd be a good time. I'm pretty sure my buddy Scott will be there. So I don't know, what cars he's taking. I know I got to help him out, get a couple of his rides back running. He's got his Vega part. I got to put a new bell housing in that. And his Le Mans, once I get a lift open, he's got a vibration in the C5 drivetrain on that. I think one of the bushings has gone in the drivetrain. And one day we'll get his vintage race car hauler, get the new 8.1 and the Allison in that thing. That'll be a good time. That truck will be good for hauling cars and stuff all over the place. Definitely want to keep everybody thinking about events next year. we'd love to try to get some groups together to some of the bigger events. We definitely want to get some guys from this area to head up to LS Fest next September. Chris, that'd be a good event for you. I think you would have a blast there. 3 days of flogging your car, and give you some drag strip time too. So that's probably something you haven't done with the car. So it's a lot of fun, and of course I'll probably be using the NASCAR for that. I don't know if I'm gonna do autocross, but I'm definitely gonna do the burnout contest, I think. But we'll see. We got a long time in between now and then for that. And then different car events we're gonna try to go to during the year. Probably hit a couple good guys. The ones that we hit for anybody that's on the screen watching, we usually try to hit Nashville, Raleigh. I'd like to go back to Columbus again this year or next year. See what Scott thinks about that, and if we can get. I know Joe with the Camaro. He said he was in for going to Columbus. He had some friends that would up in the Wisconsin area. They would come and meet us there, so that would be cool. So, yeah, so we're gonna be trying to do some of that stuff. Try to get some long distance cruises in with the cars. I'm registered for. I'm on the wait list for Sick Week next. I think it's January 28th through February 4th, or 3rd or something like that. Whatever that is. But of course, that's a drive-in drag. I don't know what I'm gonna enter it with. I put down for the NASCAR, but I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna happen. But we'll figure out some kind of vehicle. I even was thinking about twisting Doug's arm. My buddy I'm getting the NASCAR from, he's got a Camaro that would be very easy converted to street legal, and that's something he's been wanting to do anyway. And it's a drag car, so that may be a car. I had to twist his arm and see if I can get him to jump in that, but we'll see as that gets closer what we can do. Definitely want to try that out. So definitely, anything that anybody comes across during the course of the year that is a car-related event, and you'd like to see, you want to go and you want to get some people to go with you, let me know, because we know that my buddy Scott definitely likes to travel to a lot of big shows, and he definitely would like to have some people help him out. Mike says the white Camaro, the big block car. Yep, that's the one, because the small block car, I don't know if you knew, but he sold that car a couple of years ago. So the big block car, he's being that we don't have a drag strip, he's wanting to put that back on the street. So right now it's got a 509 in it, and it's got full exhaust, so it kind of worked out good. So, so Mike K says, what determines the type of converter to use? Horsepower, goals, type engine, track, street rod, or trans? There's a lot of things that determine torque converter. It's a great question. First of all, your first thing is what camshaft you're running in your engine. What engine you're running and what camshaft you're running. An engine with a lot of overlap will diminish your static compression. So you have two compression ratios in an engine. You got your static, which is the actual compression ratio of the piston and combustion chamber volume. And then you've got dynamic compression. Dynamic compression is the amount of cylinder pressure created as the engine's running. Now, when you have a camshaft with a lot of overlap, you got intake and exhaust gases crisscrossing, and the valve's not closing when you're starting or ending the compression stroke. So a cam with a lot of overlap will actually take away from dynamic compression. So, and that's the reason why, if you look at a cam book, if it's a large overlap cam, it'll say two things. One, raised compression required, and loose torque converter required. And that's the reason why, because you're going to take, depending on the cam and stuff, let's say a typical drag race cam, a 280, 290 duration at 50 with like a 106 or 108 LSA. a camshaft like that, you're gonna, if you had 12-to-1 static compression, your dynamic would probably be about 9-to-1. So that is helpful, and that you could possibly cruise an engine like that on a like a 93 octane. You wouldn't want to race it like that, but you could cruise on it. But that's when you need to find a looser converter, because what's going to happen is that motor is not going to want to run under, let's say, 1100 RPMs. It's going to want to idle at 1100. Now, when you're listening to the engine idling at 1100, it's not going to sound like it's revving because of the overlap in the cam. It's going to sound like a normal idle. But if you try to run a tight converter, when you drop it in gear, it's going to stall the engine, because a tight converter would probably knock the RPM, idle RPM, from 1100 down to 700. It's no way it's going to idle like that. So that's when you raise the stall in the torque converter. And then it also depends on what the use of the engine is. So if it's a non-lockup torque converter, obviously highway, if you're going to drive it on the street, highway driving is going to be hindered by a loose converter, because you're going to be trying to cruise it in the stall area of the converter. But if you want the car to leave from a stop, like on a drag strip or a stoplight, like if you're in Mexico racing, a high stall converter will operate as if you had a stick shift and you rev the engine up before you let the clutch out. It'll let the car get into its peak power band immediately and let the car accelerate. Where if you had a tight converter, it kind of labors until it gets into its power band, and then it starts pulling away. So you have to really kind of determine what you're doing. Now, of course, if you have the luxury of having a modern transmission, like my Vethawk, I'm putting a 4L80 in it. The 4L80 has a lockup feature in the torque converter. So now you got the best of both worlds. You can run that 3500 stall converter so that the car is nimble and can accelerate hard off the corner or from a stop. But yet when you're on the highway, you can engage the lockup in the converter, and now the converter becomes 1-to-1 like a stick shift, and you can get your fuel economy and your drivability gets way better, because now you can cruise at 2,500 RPMs and it may be 70, 75, 80 mile an hour. Whereas if you had a loose converter, that same, everything being the same, but without lockup, you'd probably be at 55, 60 mile an hour and 3,500 RPMs, because it's, the converter is not doing any physical locking up hydraulically at a lower speed. So that's the best bet for torque converters. I do this. Anybody, most engine builders will do it, unless you have an engine package that you've done multiple times and then you kind of know what converter is needed. The best thing to do is take as much information as you can get and call a transmission torque converter company. Good companies to use: Pro Torque, PTC, Cone, JW, FTI. There's multiple good torque converter companies out there. So you can call them, talk to somebody in their tech department, and explain. You're going to need to know how much cubic inch you have, how much compression ratio you have, what your camshaft specs are. Those are pretty important. And weight of your car, tire height and rear gear ratio, and what transmission you're planning. But with that information, they can get you a torque converter that's going to work for whatever things you're trying to do the most of. So if you tell them, hey, I'm trying to make a quarter-mile car, well, then their converter choices would be more geared to that. If it's going to be a street car, then it'll be more geared to that. If it's going to be a multi-purpose, then obviously there's going to be areas where you're going to have to give up, give and take. You're going to have to give up here to take it there. So, but they have the experience and knowledge to get you in the right position. There's a lot of torque converter companies out there that are lesser companies. There you might be hit or miss. I remember back in the day, I talked to a converter rebuild guy, and Oh yeah, I can build whatever you need. So I gave him all my specs. He wanted the specs. I gave him all the specs, and I got the converter back. And the converter was like, I wanted a 2800 to 3000 stall, and the converter he built for me was like 4500 stall. Now, luckily enough, it was a 700 R4, so it did have lockup in the converter, and so it was manageable on the street to drive with the converter locked up. But it was definitely not. It was too much converter for the engine I had in the car. So unless you were to the wood, the motor was kind of just free revving all the time until you get it into lockup. So try to get a good torque converter company. If you want a high-end torque converter, Neil Chance is a good converter, but now we're talking very expensive converters. Converters in some of the grudge cars, I know that those converters can be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 just for the torque converter. So, you got to look at what you're trying to build and what the application is going to be, and then discuss it with a converter company, and try to figure out what you're going to be. And another little tidbit is when you see somebody advertising a torque converter for sale, on Marketplace or eBay or anything like that, and they say, oh, the converter is a 3500 stall. That is really not a good, true statement, because the torque curve of the engine, or torque RPM of the engine, the weight of the vehicle, the tire size, gear ratio, all those things all have something to do with the stall. So a converter that stalls at 3500 on a small block 383 street motor is not going to stall at 3500 behind a 454 big block. And same thing as a big block torque converter that stalls at 4200 RPM is not going to be 4200 on a small block. And vice versa if one car is light and the other car is heavy, because the converter is the hydraulic coupling between the engine and the transmission. So vehicle weight, tire size, gear ratio, that's all helps determine or hinders the determination of what the transmission side of the converter is going to see. And the power output of the engine in front of the torque converter is in the opposite direction, going towards what the converter is going to, how the converter is going to react. So just trying to put it out there that just because a guy says the converter is 3,500 RPM, that is not, unless your combination is exactly the same as his, it's not a true statement, because it's all a matter of torque and resistance of what the converter is going to stall at. If anybody has seen the inside of a converter, it's just a bunch of vanes with a stator and a front pump, and they all spin. One part is connected to an input shaft, the other one's connected to the stator tube coming out of the transmission, and so one is fixed, and then the stator and then the outer part of the converter spin. The outer part spins connected to the engine, and the stator or the inner pump is connected to the input of the transmission. So what happens is, because they all spin at different rates of speed, the fluid goes through those vanes in kind of a circular motion and creates a hydraulic connection to drive each other. So it's kind of like, I don't know if you ever heard the term viscous coupler. It's kind of like that. It's actually the friction of the fluid between those three components that what actually causes the converter to lock up. At one point, the fluid is moving fast enough that it physically can create a lockup position between those components. So that's why weight, gear ratio, and engine power all have a big determination of what happens there. So it's not a one size fits all. If you got a stock 350 or a 383 that's fairly stock 400 horsepower, and you put a 2000 stall converter, what is advertised as a 2000 stall converter, you're probably going to be okay. You'll be in the ballpark. But as you get into a higher horsepower, heavier car, all those things create more diversity in the selection of the converter. And I mean, when in our race cars, and we're reading all the data, we're actually looking at how much physical lockup we can see in high gear, how much lockup the converter is making. And I've seen race converters actually do the hydraulic lock, on a 1800 horsepower engine, to where it's less than 3% slip in high gear, and can have enough stall that the motor can go into gear and make power to leave the starting line. So those are all the different things. That's what the torque converter companies do, is they change the number of fins and the angle, the approach angles of the front pump and the back half converter housing, and in the stator. And they'll do different amount of fins. They'll do different pitch angles and all those things. And now with CNC, they're actually even changing the shape of the stator fins to create different scenarios. So where, years ago, a turbo car wouldn't be able to build boost on the starting line because the converter would be so tight, so it could drive down track. If you got the converter loose enough to where it would build boost on the starting line, then it would drive through the converter going down the track, and it would slip all the way down the track. But as technology has changed, that's all gone now. Now they can do a lot of different things. That's why everybody's using take apart torque converters, because now we can open them up and change individual components in the transmission converter to fill the needs that we see in our data log and with the time slips on the car. So, but that's not for the end user street car hot rod guy. I mean, you're not going to spend, I think the entry level bolt together torque converter is going to set you back about $3,800. You're not going to do that for your, $10,000 hot rod. You're going to want to get a welded up converter. But even those still, if you have an EFI system and you can read dry shaft data, you can still have that converter cut apart and modified to whatever conditions you want. But again, if you go to a well-known torque converter company, give them all the specs, they can usually hit it pretty spot on. For racing applications, for street applications, they definitely can hit it spot on for what you're asking for. So that's the best way to go, is to talk to a leading transmission converter company, give them your information, and get the right converter on the first shot. And then you're spending maybe, depending on what size converter you get, anywhere from $800 to $1,500, and you're dialed in on the first shot and you're good to go. So hopefully that answers your question, Mike. Michael K. Thanks for being on the show. I haven't seen you leave a chat before, so thank you for coming on and giving a chat. It's what we want to do. I was telling Chris a couple shows ago, please ask questions, because that, unfortunately, I'm not I'm not very good at this, so I don't get a whole lot of information preset for the show. Friends ask me all the time, what are you going to talk about tonight? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm just going to wing it. And hopefully people, in the community will get on the chat and they'll ask questions, and then we'll have conversation. I can talk about a lot of things. I've been and done quite a bit of stuff in the automotive industry. So I usually have some type of answer. If I don't know, I definitely will tell you. And I'll definitely have you refer to experts in that field if it's something I don't know. But being the diversification of cars that I've worked on over the years and built, I've kind of touched on everything, because I've built road race cars, I've built round and round cars, I've built tons of drag cars. Drag racing is my main thing of doing all these years. Um, you know, I mean, I drove everything from my Toyota Cressida in foot brake class or sportsman class in NHRA, and my crew cab single rear wheel drive crew cab, all the way up to you know pro charged GTO in Pro Street, Pro Compact, and the Roots blower Hemi car in Pro Street, Pro Compact, and NHRA Pro Mod. So I've done, but and I also raced motorcycles when I was a kid because I couldn't afford to build a car. So we've done a lot of that stuff. So Mike K says he follows Calvin and his 4200 Quest. That led me your way. Oh, awesome. Yes, Calvin and his dad are good people. We've talked briefly. We met at Sick Week last year, and I don't know if you know Michael, but Leo, the guy that I'm building the 4200 for his Studebaker, he wrote a couple inline six old school performance books, and that's what led Calvin into the 6-cylinder business to start with. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go, but I was able to put Calvin and his father and Leo together at Bradenton Motorsports Park last year at the Sick Week. So that was really good because Calvin kind of looked up to Leo as somebody that got him started in the deal. So I mean, his dad got him in the cars and racing, but Leo led him into the 6-cylinder realm, and now full circle, I'm building Leo's car, and we've all kind of became friends over all that. I've gotten parts from Calvin. I've sent parts to Calvin. So we're all trying to do this thing with the 4200 deal. I definitely want to build a something with a 4200 in it in the future. I don't know if it'd be a rat rod that I can drag race or what, but I'm going to build something. If I get this, I talked about it earlier in the show, I found a new old stock GM 4200 in a crate. If I can make that deal happen, it will either be a backup engine for Leo's car, or I may stick it in my wife's Trailblazer and pull her motor out and then make that into a hot rod motor, just to kill two birds with one stone. Give her car's got her Trailblazer's got about 182,000 miles on it. The engine runs fine, and obviously we've maintained it all these years, so it'd make a good engine for a hot rod, and then I could stick that new old stock engine, and she'd have a brand new engine in her car to keep it going for another 20 years. So we'll see how this all works out, how it all plays out. It's the game of life, right? Figure out how to make things happen. So, but yeah, welcome to the channel, Michael. And I don't know if you saw the little video I put on earlier today. I'm putting the 4200 back together. I had hope this is interesting to you, but I put it together last week. We did the video on the assembly. I put it in the car. I got it running and found oil pressure issue, and took the motor back out and tore it completely apart to identify what the issue was. And I believe it came down to a stuck plunger in the dry sump. It was a lot of work ripping it all back down, but I'd rather do that and make sure everything is perfect rather than just take a guess and say, oh, it'll be good to go. And Leo's had enough issues with this engine from the previous engine builders. We don't need to have that anymore. I want this thing to accomplish what we set out to be, and that's to be the world's fastest 4200 in a door car. And I think we can do it. If we haven't already, but we definitely, if we can get it into the mid sevens, then I think we can definitely concrete that into the record books that we've done it. And we'll just keep pushing and see how far we can go with it. So comparing what we have done to what Calvin's done, we hadn't even scratched the surface with this car, and we've been 814 with the car. So I think we can get way ahead of all that stuff. So so that's pretty much it. I see it's 20 after 8. So I think unless somebody else has another tech question they want to ask, I think we're going to go ahead and call it a night. Like I say, we'll get some video of the 40 Leo's car running next week for next week's show, and hopefully get some video of the Smurf running before I put it back in the trailer, and see if I can get all my things accomplished. Then we'll see if we can get this StreamYard done for the operating system for the live show. Maybe it'll make it a little. Hopefully, it'll make it a little better. But I think I think we'll go ahead and call it a wrap for tonight. I hope everybody has a good week next week, or this week. It's weird because it's Tuesday, so it's not really the end of the week or the beginning of the week. It's right in the middle. But hope everybody has a good rest of the week and weekend. And we'll check everybody out next Tuesday. Hope everybody logs in. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. I did. I love when you guys chime in and ask questions or leave comments. It's great. I love it. And we just keep trying to grow this channel so I can get some more video out, and we'll go from there. And so see if I can get. I got a couple videos I'm close to getting done, so I'll see if I can get a couple of them out, and I guess we'll just see what we're going for there. So with that, I say good night. I'll see y'all next Tuesday. See ya.